Ladies and gentlemen, it's over. As following one of the most brutal stretches in recent memory for the Milwaukee Bucks, as they fall yet again to the Indiana Pacers, the big storyline is not the loss, but how the Damian Lillard era, at least for this season, is not only over, but it barely even began. We're going to break down exactly what that is and discuss multiple new updates on this front as we have some shocking news as it pertains to a Damian Lillard injury. We're going to break that down and discuss many other things on this episode. But before we get into it, if you're a part of the percentage who aren't subscribed to the channel and you want to help myself and Nathan, make sure to hit that subscribe button. Ladies and gentlemen, this was an absolutely brutal, heartbreaking game, and I'm going to dive right into it. We're going to dive into Kyle Kuzma. We're going to dive into everything that went wrong in this game. But ladies and gentlemen, we have some brutal news, and unfortunately, Damian Lillard is feared to have torn an Achilles. Per Crispy Haynes, he came out after and said he's fairly confident it is a torn Achilles. At the time of recording, we don't have an official report saying that he has torn his Achilles, but all signs point to Damian Lillard tearing his Achilles. And for this playoff run, it is over with Damian Lillard. And this is ridiculous. And we're talking about, his era in Milwaukee, all his different things, and how, last season he dealt with injuries. He sprained his Achilles a year ago today. And then, of course, this series, we're coming back 2-1. You won your last game. Vibes are fairly high. And then Damian Lillard goes down at home with this injury. And it was a non-contact injury. If you watch the game, it is a very unfortunate event. Just absolutely brutal. We saw him go down with an injury, hobble off. And ladies and gentlemen, this is a pretty sad, this is horrible, quite frankly. It is absolutely horrible. Dame fought his butt off to come back. He fought his butt off to, work through the blood clots, medical miracle. He comes back. He didn't have to play round one. He comes out and he goes down with an absolutely brutal injury, gets helped to the bench. And unfortunately, it seems that he has torn his Achilles. And again, it's not an ACL injury, but it's, still pretty rough. We know Klay Thompson, I believe, tore both his Achilles. We're going to dive into that in future videos and kind of discuss once updates, some more updates come out. Again, the most latest report from Chris Haynes is talking about how he basically has, fortunately, torn his Achilles. But man, oh man, ladies and gentlemen, just absolutely brutal. And this game, in a nutshell, was pretty bad. Prayers are up to, of course, Dame. But let's dive into the game a little bit. But before we do, Rick Carlisle apparently did come out in his presser and start by saying, I have such great respect for him and calls his injury tragic. So, shout out to Rick Carlisle, always a class A, act. But let's dive into the game a little bit. Dame played 6 minutes. Of course, he went down in the first quarter. I mean, it was a disastrous game. Giannis Antetokounmpo was doing every single thing he can. Of course, the story of tonight's not the fact that the Bucks lost to the Pacers. It's not the fact that they're down 3-1 in the series heading back on the road. It's none of that. It's the fact that Dame is going to be out, and not only for, what we assume is the rest of the series, but now his future. He's 34 years old. His future in the league and all these different things, depending on the severity of the injury and the tear in the Achilles, is in serious jeopardy now. But let's dive into the game a little bit. You have Giannis going, 9 for 20 with 28 points. The rest of the starters, horrible. Kuzma, horrible. Lopez, horrible. Gary Trent Jr., minus 25. Doc put him into the starting lineup instead of Taurean Prince. He did, not very great. You have Taurean Prince doing even worse, 0 points. And again, the same guys, Bobby Portis and specifically Kevin Porter Jr., he had a good game tonight. And we were wondering if Doc Rivers, now what his future looks like in Milwaukee. This changes everything for the Milwaukee Bucks. And we're, of course, going to have multiple videos talking about the future of Dame, the future of Giannis is, of course, in question now, all these different things. But Kevin Porter Jr. took over the point guard role for Damian Lillard, and he did really well. The Bucks could not hold on tonight. They lost by, a hefty margin, and clearly the Pacers were the better team tonight. And I think, quite frankly, they are the better team without Damian Lillard. Now, am I saying this series is over? Absolutely not. There still is a chance, despite Dame's, injury, that they come back and they can win the series. It's going to take a miracle, especially with Doc Rivers as the coach. People are sick of his rotations. But at some point, you have to assume the players have to play. Jericho Sims, okay, you have Pi Connaughton going 1 for 7 in 10 minutes. You have Taurean Prince, and you have your acquisition at the deadline, Kyle Kuzma, playing 16 minutes and putting up 3 points, ladies and gentlemen. This series, 6 points, 1 assist, 1.5 rebounds. In every sense of the word, it is one of the most horrible performances we've ever seen. And this was the big acquisition you traded Chris Middleton for. And I'm pretty confident that, the older man and Chris Middleton, not that he's an old man, but the older man and Chris Middleton compared to Kuzma would have gave the Bucks something better than this. He would have had some sort of chemistry with Giannis. He would have done something. But instead, what he does is absolutely nothing. He wasn't able to help Giannis, and if he would have performed at his 15 to 20 points per game self that we saw in Washington, and even for the start and towards the end of the regular season for the Bucks, I almost said the Nuggets. The Bucks, it Yeah, it was a disastrous trade in hindsight. And most importantly, and what actually matters here, it was just a disastrous few. It's been a disastrous series. But it is clear now, like the Bucks don't have enough to compete in this division and this conference. Sorry, like I'm obviously being negative in this video and pessimistic, but you have your starters cannot score the ball. They combined, albeit Dame, of course, went out with an injury, but they combined for 15 points, which is better than last game. But like, you can't have Kyle Kuzma putting up 3 points, Gary Trent Jr. putting up 6 points in 32 minutes. Gary Trent Jr. is coming off a 39-point game, or he was the star of the show, and you have Damian Lillard back, and he tears his Achilles. And then you have Kevin Porter Jr. coming out. It's just a disaster, an absolute disaster from start to bottom. Whether you want to talk about it in the sense of a disaster from John Horse's side, who just got an extension, having Doc Rivers your coach, who can't make any adjustments in the playoffs. You, of course, have Taurean Prince, who is supposed to be a decent 3-and-D guy. You look at these games of series, he has 6 points in the entire series, which is it's almost made up how bad the guys have been. Like Kyle Kuzma, disastrous. Taurean Prince, disastrous. If you would have told us prior to the series that Prince would have scored 6 points through 4 games, you have Kyle Kuzma coming out and averaging 6 points through 4 games, you wouldn't be able to win any games. And Giannis Antetokounmpo was doing the absolute best he can. He's playing alongside a bunch of guys who aren't scoring the ball at all. Like there's some guys playing well. AJ Green's doing his best out there. Kevin Porter Jr., even Bobby Portis. It's been clear the roster is flawed, but man, oh man, it is just absolutely heartbreaking, absolutely devastating. And the loss itself, you pair that with the fact that Lillard went out with, an Achilles tear. It is just the most heartbreaking loss in a very long time. And the fact that this era of Damian Lillard, Johnny Horse traded for him in the offseason a couple of years ago, didn't really play much last year in the playoffs. Of course, this year now, misses the start, has a medical miracle, gets cleared for his blood clots. He comes back. And guess what happens? He tears his Achilles. Just brutal luck to a fantastic, by all accounts, a fantastic guy, fantastic human being. Worked his butt off. Worked his butt off just for him to, have this horrible freak injury. A non-contact injury is devastating, and it spills the L for, assuming he's out for whether it's a year or months, or again, at this point, it's mostly speculation, but Chris Haynes saying he tore his Achilles. It is brutal. It is absolutely brutal, and the hope now, just absolutely atrocious. And you're at the point where you just got to hope. You got to hope that maybe it's a sprain like last year. Maybe the Bucks can fight I want to see the Bucks fight to the very end right now. Find a way to win this series, do something for Damian Lillard, because he came back to try to give this team something, because they had nothing in the first 2 games without him. Absolutely nothing. And then he comes back, brutal injury. The team is horrible. My blood is boiling. Taurean Prince, garbage. Kyle Kuzma, garbage. Most of this team, garbage. And hopefully they can come back and take care of business.